The rain poured relentlessly over the mountains when Ethan Cole, a reclusive veteran, spotted something staggering across the muddy trail: a wounded German shepherd, bleeding, limping, but still pushing forward through the storm. Ethan tried to help, but the dog refused to stop. It kept looking back, barking, as if begging him to follow. Against his instincts, he grabbed his rifle and flashlight and followed the trail deep into the forest. Hours later, they reached a remote cabin he didn't even know existed. But when Ethan stepped inside, he froze. What he found there made his hands tremble, because this dog hadn't led him to safety. It had led him to a secret that had been waiting for him all along. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. High in the misty mountains of Montana, Ethan Cole lived in silence. His cabin stood miles away from the nearest road. No neighbors, no noise, no reminders of the world he'd left behind. Once, he was a decorated Marine, sharp, disciplined, unbreakable. But the war had taken more than his brothers in arms. It had taken his peace. He'd watched too many men fall, including his unit's K-9 Ranger, who died saving him from an explosion. Since then, Ethan carried the guilt like a second heartbeat, a reminder that some debts could never be repaid. He spent his days chopping wood, hunting deer, and fixing what didn't need fixing, as if silence itself might drown out the memories. The walls of his cabin were lined with photos of his squad, smiling faces frozen in time, all gone now. At night, he'd sit on the porch, rifle resting on his lap, staring into the endless dark. The world believed he wanted solitude, but the truth was simpler. Ethan didn't know how to live without loss. That evening, as thunder rumbled through the valley, he didn't know fate was sending him a visitor, one that would tear open old wounds and begin to heal them. The storm rolled in fast that night, rain pounding against the roof, wind howling through the trees like a warning. Ethan sat by the fire, the only light in the cabin flickering across his scarred hands. Then came a sound, faint, desperate scratching at the door. At first, he thought it was the wind, but then came a low whimper. Cautiously, he grabbed his rifle and opened the door. What he saw made him freeze: a German shepherd, soaked, trembling, and bleeding from his side. The dog collapsed at Ethan's boots, eyes glazed with exhaustion. Instinct took over. He knelt down, muttering, "Easy boy, you're safe now." Ethan carried him inside, laid him by the fire, and cleaned the wound with trembling hands. The dog flinched but didn't fight back. Instead, he rested his head on Ethan's arm, trusting him completely. Hours passed. The storm raged outside, but inside, the two survivors sat in uneasy peace. Then, just as Ethan began to doze off, the dog jolted upright, growling toward the window. His eyes were sharp again, alert. He turned to Ethan, whining urgently, pawing at his jacket. "What is it, boy?" Ethan whispered. The dog barked once, then limped toward the door, glancing back, begging him to follow. Ethan hesitated at the door, staring into the storm. The rain fell like sheets of glass, wind whipping through the trees. The dog barked again, weak but determined, before limping into the night. Something deep in Ethan stirred. He grabbed his jacket, slung his rifle over his shoulder, and followed. The forest was alive with noise, creaking branches, thunder rolling above, and the faint sound of paws splashing through the mud ahead. Every few steps, the dog stopped, turned back to ensure Ethan was still there, then pressed on. "Where are you taking me, boy?" Ethan muttered, pushing through the downpour. After what felt like hours, the trees thinned, and the rain softened into mist. Ahead, faint light flickered through the fog, a single lamp glowing inside a cabin perched on a ridge. Ethan froze. He'd lived here for years and never seen another soul for miles. The dog whimpered, tail low, urging him closer. Ethan crept forward, rifle raised, senses sharp. He circled the cabin, noticing the door slightly ajar. Inside, a candle burned beside a dusty table covered in old photographs, maps, and medals. Then his breath caught. On the wall hung a faded photo, his own unit, smiling, and standing beside them was the same dog. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He stepped deeper into the cabin, mud dripping from his boots. The air smelled of dust and faint antiseptic, signs that someone had lived here recently. On the table lay military files, dog tags, and a worn leather notebook stamped with a symbol he hadn't seen in years, his old unit's insignia. The German Shepherd circled him, tail twitching anxiously, then padded toward a closed door in the back. He scratched once and looked back at Ethan. Heart pounding, Ethan pushed the door open. Inside, on a cot under a dim lantern, lay an old man, frail and pale, but his face was unmistakable. "Captain Harris?" Ethan whispered. The man stirred, opening cloudy eyes. "Ethan, you came," he rasped. Ethan dropped to his knees beside him. "We thought you were dead. All of you." Harris coughed, struggling to speak. "It wasn't an ambush. It was a setup. Someone sold us out. I escaped, but barely. This dog, he never left me." Ethan turned to the shepherd, realization dawning. "Rex," he whispered. "You're Rex, our K9 from that mission." Harris nodded weakly. "He's been waiting for you, son. There's something you need to see. Something that will finish what we started." Ethan barely slept that night. The storm had passed, but the air was thick with unease. Captain Harris lay weak on the cot, whispering in fragments. "They killed our men to bury the truth. Files on a flash drive. Evidence." He pointed toward a locked box near the table. Inside, Ethan found it. A small USB drive, labeled with their mission code AS Dawn broke. Ethan worked on repairing the cabin's old radio. Static crackled, but before he could send a signal, Rex growled low, eyes fixed on the window. Headlights. A black SUV crawled up the trail. "Company," Ethan muttered, grabbing his rifle. 3 armed men stepped out, scanning the cabin. "We know you're in there, soldier," one shouted. The firefight erupted in seconds, glass shattering, wood splintering. Ethan moved with old precision, taking down one attacker while Rex lunged at another, teeth sinking into a gloved arm. Bullets tore through the cabin walls. When the smoke cleared, silence fell. 2 men down, one fled into the trees. Ethan rushed to Harris's side, but the old man's breathing was shallow. "Get the truth out," Harris whispered, pressing the flash drive into his hand. "You were always the son I never had." Then his hand went still. Rex whimpered softly, resting his head against Ethan's arm. 2 weeks later, the mountains were quiet again, but the world beyond them was not. The flash drive Ethan carried had blown open a scandal buried for years. Names, documents, and evidence of betrayal within their ranks filled every headline. Captain Harris's name, once erased, was now honored with full military honors at the memorial. Ethan stood in his dress uniform for the first time in years. Rex sitting proudly beside him, a silver medal gleaming on his collar. Reporters gathered around, microphones out. "Mr. Cole, what made you follow that wounded dog that night?" one asked. Ethan looked down at Rex and smiled faintly. "Because when a soldier calls for help, you answer. Doesn't matter if he walks on 2 legs or 4. The crowd went silent, emotion thick in the air. Later, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Ethan and Rex returned to the cabin. The fire crackled softly, casting warm light over Harris's folded flag on the mantel. Ethan knelt beside Rex, scratching behind his ears. "You didn't just save me, buddy," he whispered. "You brought me home." Rex barked once, a sound both strong and gentle, as if saying, "Mission complete," and for the first time in years, Ethan finally felt peace.